Oh, dear God. My first thoughts on realizing that I would have to fight Red, the creature that tormented me through the entire game. How would I be able to fight something that could kill me with one hit? Thankfully, Red was no longer able to deliver one-hit kills, but despite that, this was still the most difficult battle I've faced, in this game or otherwise. If I had a real comprehension of what I was going into before I started the fight, I would have never done it. Very soon I learned what a horrible mistake I'd made. Red reached out and clawed at Godzilla, and when the claws hit him, I felt it. I know it's common for people to cringe when they're playing a video game and their character gets hit or loses a life, but it wasn't like that. I felt genuine physical pain. When the pain struck me, I paused the game. I hadn't suffered any actual injury, but it felt like my shoulder had just been clawed through. I had seen and experienced many unpleasant things at this point. The game causing real pain is where I drew the line. Yes, I would be disappointed that I wouldn't see the end of the game, but the risk was no longer worth it. I was about to get up and take one last screenshot before turning the NES off when I realized something. I couldn't get up. I was paralyzed to my seat. The only muscles I could move were my fingers and thumbs. As the terror set in, a new message appeared on the screen. I started to scream, but only a weak choking sound came out. I desperately tried to get my body to move, but it did nothing. I was looking in every direction, and then I looked over at the computer. Somehow the computer was taking screenshots of the game on its own. I still don't know how or why, but something in the game must have been causing it. Since Red could hear what I was saying, I tried begging for him to let me go. From here, things started to get hazy, as I was under extreme stress. But from what I can remember, I said, I'm sorry I insulted you. I didn't mean it. I didn't know things would get this serious. Please just let me go. If you let me go, I promise I'll never tell anybody or turn on the game ever again. Please. And Red replied, only one will survive. The statement could not have been more clear. If I couldn't kill Red, then he would kill me. Like an idiot, I played around with something that I didn't understand, and now it might cost me my life. I stopped struggling to move and accepted the reality of the situation. There was no other way to get out of this. I had to kill Red. It all went by so fast. If it weren't for the screenshots, I might not have even remembered any of this. Just like in those chase levels, Red moved at a horrifyingly fast pace. There was barely enough time to process a thought, and thus there was no more time to form a strategy. I had to rely solely on my wits and reflexes. To make things even worse, there was no way to predict of what kind of attacks Red might use, so I constantly had to think of offense and defense. I felt like every hit that Godzilla took, it hurt me. They all hurt. I tried so hard to avoid damage, but every attack that I dodged left me vulnerable to another, and the pain just got worse. After he jumped over me, Red's eyes started to glow. I moved as far back as I could and ducked, but there was no dodging this one. When this hit me, I really did scream. I screamed so loud that someone in my apartment should have been able to hear me, but they didn't. Just looking at the image hurts me, making you remember the incinerating burn. I paused the game because it hurt so badly, but Red unpaused the game and attacked me again. I immediately counterattacked with the heat beam, again and again until the power meter was diminished. I wanted Red to hurt like I did. Just before the timer ran out, Red transitioned into his swimming form. I didn't think the timer would still be affecting a battle like this. I'm thankful for it because it gave me a few minutes to collect my thoughts and decide what to do next. I chose to fight Red's next two forms with the monster I encountered with them, so Anguirus was next. It probably wasn't the smartest idea at the time, but it's what I did. I jumped up and heat beamed Red in the face, and he moved off screen where I couldn't reach him. Then a large wave of mines started to fall from above. I felt this was unfair. If you're gonna cheat, then why do you even let me use the controller? And then he came at me, rushing from the top left of the screen. Damn it! Now I wouldn't even be able to see where his next attack was coming from. Red continued to strike down from random angles. I constantly moved to swerve around him. Another 40 seconds went by and Anguirus was nearly gone, but together we had forced Red into his flying form. So it was Mothra's turn next. Deciding to fight Red with Mothra was a terrible idea. Mothra was instantly overwhelmed by Red, and the life meter was devastated in a mere 15 seconds. Once Mothra's life had hit 2 bars, Red did something I didn't see coming. He reached out, grabbed Mothra, and ate her. After Mothra was devoured, I felt an agonizing pain like being crushed to death. Mothra had been killed for my stupidity, and I would share the pain. It was a short transition from the battle to the board, but it felt like an hour. The pain, combined with being unable to move, was driving me insane. I wanted so badly for this to end. I never wanted anything so much in my life. But I still had hope. There was only one monster left that could be brought to full health by engaging Red in battle. Solomon. If any of them had a chance to save my life, it would be him. Solomon apparently had history with Red. That's when the fight started. This dialogue happened. Red took me by surprise again by immediately burning me with his demonic fire for a second time. As much as it hurt, it really worked to my advantage. Since Solomon started with full health, he still had some to spare. But now, Red has used up all of his energy. It cannot use his ultimate weapon any longer. Now he would die. As he drew closer to the end of the life bar, he turned his whole body to face the screen and flew upward, then slamming down in an attempt to crush Solomon. When that failed to work, he tried to devour Solomon like he did Mothra, but he wouldn't be eating my monster this time. I thought I had won, but I was so wrong. Red wasn't sinking to the bottom, and I still couldn't move. Red was still alive. After a seeming defeat by Solomon, Red had reconstructed his body into a gigantic final form, transporting us into a blazing inferno in the process. It was reminiscent of our first encounter, except now the scenery, much like the true power of Red, had become very real. The music had erupted into a loud blaring and a furious drum of death. I faced Red against an insane amount of health. My own demise was imminent. Solomon was my strongest monster, but not even he stood a chance. It was like trying to fight a mountain. Within seconds, Solomon was overpowered and dropped to the floor, when Red crushed him to death underneath his foot. The sadistic demon took his time as he snapped Solomon's vertebrae and ribs like dry, brittle twigs. I could tell he enjoyed the pain. This is hopeless. I'm a dead man. I had no choice but to send another monster to his death. We were all going to die. I only hoped they would forgive me. After decreasing Red's health by a minuscule amount, Anguirus was also obliterated. Red unleashed a hail of blazing hot needles into his face until he collapsed. Another moment of unspeakable agony. Then nothingness as my ally faded away. I asked Red how he knew my name, and he said, for years she was tortured by something nobody understood. Now I knew what it was. Now I understood why I was mocked about Melissa's death, and how the game knew about it. Because he knew about it. Because he was the one responsible. And all this time he was going to kill me. I was taken back to the board to send Godzilla to his final stand. Barely anything was left of the board, just Godzilla and Red's icon. And the fifth monster. In the midst of everything that happened, I had completely forgotten about it. I tried yet again to select it. I cursed, begged, screamed at it to do something, anything to help me. To no avail. There was only one thing to do. I knew Godzilla didn't stand any more of a chance than the rest did. But maybe now that all the monsters are gone, the fifth monster might finally awaken. I managed to get the creature's icon selected and pressed A as fast as I could. The icon was starting to shake, as if it was trying desperately to move. It was then that Red decided he was done playing fair, and before I could activate the monster, he went for the killing blow, paralyzing me. My hands started to become numb and unfeeling, but even as my vision started to fade away, I had still tried to press the A button. Red surely was breaking one of his rules, but he must have thought that if he could kill me quickly, then it would be too late for any consequences to matter. He would have won. Well, he was wrong. Red's power was being challenged by another force. It prevented him from killing me, and when I regained my vision, I saw a familiar sight.
We don't have much time.
Who are you?
You already know me. I am Melissa.
What? How is that possible? Red told me that he killed you.
It's true. Even after this, he still tortures me. If you can't stop him, he'll do the same to you.
But how will I be able to stop him now?
I can't fight him, but there is one who can. I will release it from his grasp. Don't give up. I love you.
Her words stirred up something inside me. I wasn't going to die like this. I had to fight more for her life than my own. I had to fight to save Melissa and the world she inhabits. With her help, the fifth monster was finally unleashed. It was time for this to end, once and for all. Together, we would take this damned hellspawn out of existence. Acacius was by far the strongest playable monster in the game. He had to be, if we were to have any chance of surviving. His punch involved him turning his hands into blades, which caused tremendous damage. But Red had more than enough life to spare. In the end, this would come down to pure skill. With one final strike, Red was destroyed. His body disintegrated and sank below, accompanied by a soar of triumphant music. Slowly, the paralysis wore off, and I was able to stand up again. We had done it. Melissa's death had been avenged, and I felt overcome with happiness, until I remembered all the death and pain that led up to this point. All the other monsters who had fought and died. I was about to warn them, but the game had not yet concluded. Tears of joy streamed down my face and I broke out crying. I cried harder than I had in several years, maybe my whole life. All I had been through, all I've discovered. And now the game was coming to an end. But before she and the others left, Melissa had something to tell me.
You saved us. We are forever grateful. We'll be together again someday.